It is 2 in the morning. You have been lying in bed for almost an hour, and you are now performing the ancient human ritual known as checking how little sleep you are going to get. You look at the clock. 5 hours and 12 minutes. You close your eyes and give yourself a firm instruction. Sleep now. Nothing happens, so you try harder. You relax your forehead aggressively. You control your breathing. You search for the perfect position. You begin negotiating with your own brain, like a manager dealing with a difficult employee. If you fall asleep in the next 10 minutes, tomorrow will still be fine. And somehow every effort to force sleep makes you more awake. This is not just a sleep problem. The same pattern appears when you try to control a conversation, micromanage someone at work, make a relationship develop faster, or desperately persuade people to approve of you. Sometimes, the harder you push, the further the result moves away. An ancient Taoist idea helps explain why. It is called Wu Wei, acting without unnecessary force. And no, it does not mean lying on the sofa while calling your avoidance spiritual wisdom. It means learning the difference between useful effort and effort that fights the nature of the situation. By the end of this video, I will give you a simple exercise for noticing where you are forcing life and what to do instead. The problem with forcing. Most of us have been taught a very simple equation. More effort equals better results, and in many areas that is true. If you want to become stronger, you train. If you want to learn a language, you practice. If you want a clean kitchen, staring calmly at the dishes will not usually cause them to wash themselves. Effort matters, but some results cannot be produced directly. You can create good conditions for sleep, but you cannot command yourself to become unconscious. You can invite an honest conversation, but you cannot force another person to trust you. You can lead an employee, but you cannot control every decision without eventually making them afraid to think for themselves. You can behave with confidence and kindness, but you cannot force everyone to admire you. These results are indirect. They emerge from the right conditions, and when we treat an indirect result as something we can seize through sheer willpower, our effort begins to sabotage us. We become tense. We stop paying attention. We repeat the same strategy with more intensity, even when the strategy is clearly failing. It is like trying to escape quicksand by panicking more efficiently. This is where Wu Wei becomes useful. What Wu Wei actually means. Wu Wei is often translated as non-action, effortless action, or not forcing. None of those translations captures the whole idea perfectly. The Tao Te Ching, the text traditionally associated with Laozi, repeatedly describes wise action as less controlling, less self-important, and more responsive to the way things naturally unfold. The basic idea is not never act. It is do not add unnecessary struggle to action. Think of water. Water does not argue with a rock. It moves around it. It gathers, changes direction, and continues. That does not make water weak. Given enough time, water can reshape stone. Its power comes partly from not wasting energy on a battle. It does not need to fight. The Tao Te Ching repeatedly uses water to illustrate softness, adaptability, and power without aggressive struggle. Wu Wei asks a practical question. What would effective action look like if I stopped trying to dominate the entire process? That is very different from doing nothing. A skilled musician may appear relaxed, but that ease rests on years of practice. A good footballer does not calculate every movement while dribbling. Training has made the response natural. A good teacher does not force every student through the same explanation. They notice confusion and adjust. Wu Wei can look effortless from the outside because the action fits the situation. The wrong effort feels like pushing a door that says pull. Wu Wei is not giving up on the door. It is reading the sign. Sleep. The result you cannot chase. Return to the person lying awake at 2 in the morning. Their goal is reasonable. They want to sleep. But they have turned sleep into a performance. Now they are monitoring it, judging it, calculating it. Every few minutes, they check whether they have succeeded. The mind receives a very clear message. This is an emergency. And emergencies are not famous for making people sleepy. The Taoist response is not to force relaxation, even harder. It is to stop chasing sleep as an immediate achievement. You might get out of bed for a few minutes, sit somewhere dim, read something calm, or simply allow yourself to rest without demanding that rest become sleep. The shift is small but important. I must sleep now becomes, I will create quiet conditions and let sleep arrive when it arrives. You still take action. You turn off the bright screen. You make the room comfortable. You slow down. But then you stop pulling on the plant to make it grow. This is Wu Wei, preparing without commanding. And this principle becomes even more powerful when other people are involved. Controlling a conversation. Imagine you are having an important conversation with your partner, friend, or colleague. You want them to understand you, so you prepare your argument. Then, while they speak, you are not really listening. You are waiting for the first gap where you can insert your next point. They become defensive. You notice this and explain yourself with even more intensity. They feel even less heard. Soon, both of you are repeating the same sentences at a higher volume, as though truth is unlocked by improved speaker settings. The forced approach asks, how do I make this person agree? Wu Wei asks, what is this conversation asking from me right now? Perhaps it needs a question instead of another argument. Perhaps it needs 10 seconds of silence. Perhaps it needs you to say, I think I understand your words, but I may not understand what this felt like for you. That is still action. In fact, it may require more courage than continuing your speech. You are giving up control over the exact direction of the conversation so that a real conversation can begin. Here is a useful sign that you are forcing. You are no longer responding to what is happening. You are responding to the outcome you decided must happen. And this is easy to notice in a conversation. The next form is harder because forcing can disguise itself as responsibility. Micromanaging at work. Suppose you manage a small team. You care about the results, so you check everything, every email, every minor decision, every draft. You correct people's work before they have a chance to learn from it. At first, this may improve consistency. Then, something strange happens. People stop taking initiative. They ask permission for decisions they could easily make themselves. Their work becomes cautious. You conclude that they clearly need even more supervision. Congratulations, you have created the problem that now proves your solution was necessary. Wu Wei in leadership does not mean disappearing for 3 months and returning with the question, so how is the company? It means creating conditions in which good work can happen without your constant interference. Set a clear goal. Define the boundaries. Make sure people have the tools and information they need. Then leave enough space for them to use their judgment. Intervene when intervention adds value, not merely when your anxiety demands reassurance. A leader acting with Wu Wei may do less visible controlling but more thoughtful preparation. The effort moves from supervising every movement to designing a healthier system. That is not laziness, it is leverage. If you like practical philosophy that helps with ordinary problems like stress, work, relationships, and overthinking, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. It tells YouTube that ancient wisdom is still useful, even when it cannot fix the algorithm. Desperately pursuing approval. Now we reach one of the most personal forms of forcing. Trying to make people like you. You rewrite a message 5 times so you sound intelligent, relaxed, funny, and somehow completely spontaneous. You monitor every facial expression while speaking. You agree too quickly. You hide opinions that might create disagreement. You perform a version of yourself designed to receive approval. But the more desperately you try to appear natural, the less natural you become. Other people may not know exactly what is happening, but they can often feel the tension. And even when they do approve of you, the approval does not satisfy you, because a quiet doubt remains. Would they still like me if I stopped performing? Wu Wei does not tell you to stop caring about other people. That would be convenient, but not very human. It tells you to stop trying to control a result that belongs partly to them. You control whether you are honest, whether you are considerate, whether you listen, whether you keep your promises. You do not control the final judgment another person forms. The more energy you spend managing their opinion, the less energy you have for becoming someone you respect. This is the strange reversal at the heart of Wu Wei. When you stop forcing approval, you often become easier to trust, not because you have discovered a clever new approval strategy, but because you are finally present. What people misunderstand. At this point, Wu Wei can sound like a pleasant slogan: stop trying, relax, let everything happen. But that is too simple. Taoism is a diverse tradition with philosophical, religious, and historical forms. Even the Tao Te Ching has been interpreted in different ways. Scholars also debate whether Laozi was one historical individual and whether the text developed from sayings collected over time. So no single English slogan captures all of Taoism. Go with the flow can be helpful, but it can also become an excuse. A river goes with the flow. So does a shopping trolley with one broken wheel. Direction still matters. Wu Wei is not passivity. It does not mean staying in a harmful relationship, because leaving would require effort. It does not mean ignoring injustice. It does not mean refusing to prepare, practice, plan, or make difficult decisions. Sometimes circumstances require direct and forceful action. If a child is running toward traffic, this is not the moment to stand like water and explore non-interference. You act. The question is not whether effort is present. The question is whether the effort fits reality. A surgeon needs precision. An athlete needs discipline. A person setting a boundary may need to speak very clearly. Wu Wei does not remove action. It removes wasted action, panic, ego, compulsive control, and resistance to facts that will not change merely because we dislike them. Taoist interpreters commonly stress that people practicing Wu Wei still act. The concept is not simply a philosophy of doing nothing. 3 questions to ask yourself. So how can you tell whether you are practicing useful effort or unnecessary force? Ask 3 questions. First, am I trying to control something that cannot be controlled directly? Sleep, trust, affection, creativity, and reputation cannot be commanded. You can influence them, but you cannot order them to appear. Second, am I still responding to reality? Or am I repeating a plan because I am emotionally attached to the plan? If a conversation has become defensive, another perfectly polished argument may not help. If your employee needs room to grow, another status meeting may make things worse. Third, what is the smallest effective action available? Not the most dramatic action, not the action that makes you feel most in control, the smallest action that genuinely improves the conditions. Send the clear message. Ask the honest question. Set the boundary. Prepare the room for sleep. Then stop interfering. The practice, one less. Push. Here is the exercise to try this week. Call it one less push. For 7 days, choose one situation each day where you feel the urge to force an outcome. It might be falling asleep, getting a reply, winning an argument, perfecting a piece of work, making someone approve of you. Write down 3 short lines. What am I trying to force? What can I actually influence? What would one less push look like? One less push might mean sending one clear message instead of 4 anxious follow-ups. It might mean giving an employee a deadline and ownership instead of checking every hour. It might mean asking one sincere question during an argument and then listening to the answer. It might mean resting in bed without turning sleep into an exam you are failing. Then notice what happens. This is not a trick for guaranteeing the result you want. That would simply turn Wu Wei into a more sophisticated form of control. The practice is to act well without demanding total control over what follows. Conclusion. We often assume that our frustration means we need more effort. Sometimes it means our effort is badly aimed. The lesson of Wu Wei is not that life requires no work. It is that effective action is not always the loudest, hardest, or most controlling action. Sometimes strength looks like persistence. Sometimes it looks like adaptation. And sometimes it looks like preparing the conditions, taking the next sensible step, and allowing the rest to unfold without your hands around its throat. Tonight, if you cannot sleep, do not try to become better at forcing sleep. Make the room quiet, let the body rest, release the demand. And tomorrow, look for one more place where your struggle is feeding the problem it is trying to solve. Then try one less push. You may discover that letting go of control is not the same as giving up. Sometimes it is the moment you finally begin to act with reality instead of against it.